Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
I can't hear you!
Aye, aye, Captain!
Oh! Hey, squad! Sizzling a pineapple under the sea! Absorbent and yellow and porous is he! If nonsense nonsense be something you wish, then drop on the deck and flop like a fish! Ready? SpongeBob SquarePants! SpongeBob SquarePants! SpongeBob SquarePants!
Hi, Philip Zimbardo here, with you to discuss another fantastic episode of Psychology Today. Now, science has been a monumental instrument of good in this world, all from the creation and understanding of mathematical equations, the plotting of stars, the creation of wondrous machines. Science has been used to better society. Now, psychology, being a social science, utilizes the same basic structures as any other science would. Take, for instance, the hypothesis. A hypothesis is derived from a guess, or a inkling, if you will, of a sort of phenomenon that can be observed in nature or society. Once you have a hypothesis, that hypothesis can then be taken into an experiment in which we use critical thinking to derive a sensible conclusion. And from that conclusion, a theory can be used. Tonight, we will delve further into these subjects and many more. Come join me here with Zimbardo. Now, a random sample is essentially a randomly selected group of a population. For instance, let's take the Hunger Games, and where the participants' names were pulled out of a bowl by that evil bitch.
Today we are picking out a name for the 75th annual Hunger Games. Primrose Severdeen, you are picked.
Volunteers tribute.
A histogram is a bar graph depicting a frequency distribution. A mode is the most frequently occurring score in the distribution. A mean is the arithmetic average of distribution obtained by adding the scores and then dividing the number of scores. Median is the middle score in the distribution. Half the scores above it and half are below it. Range is the difference between the highest and the lowest scores of the distribution. Standard deviation is a computed measure of how the scores vary around the mean score. And a normal curve is just the symmetrical bell-shaped curve that describes the distribution of many types of data.
So when conducting an experiment, it's important to be ethical to ensure the best possible outcome for the research.
Included with that, it's important to have informed consent from all of the participants to make sure they are able and willing to participate.
And with that comes culture, which includes the behaviors, the ideas, and attitudes of what's surrounded by.
And at the end of each experiment, it's important to debrief so you can explain the purpose and importance of the study to your subjects.
Now, especially in psychology, but other realms of science as well, it is occasionally important to have what is called a double-blind study. In a double-blind study, the presenter of the experiment does not actually know who is taking what substance or being exposed to what stimulus. The only person that truly knows, in this case, will be me. Now, the experimenter, Mariah Smiley, will have no idea which participant has eaten the leaf with methamphetamine and which participant has eaten the leaf with water on it.
Okay, so here we have 2 leaves that you each have to eat, and I'm going to record you as you respond to them.
As you can see, Jacob is part of the experimental group,
as he has clearly ingested the methamphetamine, while Sydney has simply ingested the dihydrogen monoxide laced leaf. Mariah will now continue with the experiment, issuing several math problems.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a couple math problems, starting now. 3 plus 3,
6,
8 plus 8,
16,
24 times 24.
Good question.
And you don't know?
no,
Okay, all right, last question. What's the circumference of the sun?
I don't know.
2,713,406 miles.
That's correct.
Now, whenever you partake, create any experiment, it is imperative that the experiment is not only free of bias, but also repeatable. Now, in this experiment where we tested the dihydrogen monoxide against the experimental methamphetamine, we made note that Jacob was incredibly apt at solving seemingly impossible math problems somehow. Anyway, this is a correlation. We have correlated that Jacob, having taken meth, is able to solve math problems incredibly quickly. Now,
Oh, wait, my bad. I thought that was the end of the video.
What you say? That you only meant well, 'cause you did.
now, this is simply a correlation. This does not mean that meth makes you smart. This could simply mean that Jacob got lucky, or through some divine power, he is naturally good at solving complex arithmetic. Thank you for joining me today with Philip Zimbardo on experiments and the nature of science. Next time, I hope you'll have the pleasure of joining us for a talk on the brain.